analysis uploaded the same thing on the same day 3 times in a row.
What a coincidence, am I right?
So once again, today I'm going to be talking about not only Heihachi vs Geese, but also every single Tekken and Fatal Fury death battle that came before it. I've kind of had a blast talking about past episodes, and it just sort of feels right given this is the anniversary season for me to talk about a bunch of death battles from history for the historic season. It just feels right to me. So yes, I will be doing this every single time. So I'm recording this part before Heihachi vs Geese comes out, just the intro, and if it's, say, Blake vs Mikasa, I'm gonna have to talk about Yang vs Tifa and Weiss vs Mitsuri. Oh boy. In this case, we're seeing the return of a classic fighting game series last seen in Season 3 to battle against one of the biggest fighting game franchises of all time, which has only had one episode as of now. Let's see how all of the previous episodes fared. And of course, Biff is doing his own version of this video. This is just something we're going to be doing all fucking year, and you guys probably aren't going to complain. And that will be linked in the description and in the end card, hopefully, if I remember. Also, if you want to skip straight to my opinions on Heihachi vs Geese, I'm going to put the timestamp right here. Let's get going.
Pictures? You fool! Words paint 1,000 beautiful pictures all by themselves!
Every time I hear Wiz say, he's Boomstick and I'm Wizard, it's just the most cursed shit ever. Anyway, so I'm beginning to see why this was maybe not the best idea, because I have just nothing good to say about Chun-Li vs Mai Shiranui. The analysis is... it has its moments. It's strange, because while this goes to show how much of a degenerate Boomstick was early on, I still probably prefer this to the modern Family Guy cutaways. Despite that, I wouldn't call it funny. There's maybe a bit too many, I'm a pervert, I'm Boomstick. I'd like to take a ride on that helicopter jokes, and she's left wide open. Fucking... if you know what that laugh was, you're gonna find it hilarious. The analysis has that Season 1 charm, with very little in the way of meaningful feats and whatnot, but it's also short enough that I'm not terribly bothered. Somehow I probably have more to say about the PSA, I just like this one. It's funny, it has multiple jokes that are good, and I just find myself remembering this a lot more than anything else in the episode. And that includes the fight. It's not really bad, it's just, you know... Though I guess given my opinion on Dr. Doom vs Lex Luthor, nobody in this verse community seems to understand what I mean when I say it's not good or bad, it's sort of mid. Apparently that concept just doesn't exist, it's either it's good or it's bad, and there's no middle ground. Still, it's not all bad, it has good pacing, and... oh, that's really all it has, man. The death is super abrupt and out of nowhere, the skeleton doesn't at all fit with the art style of the animation. It's so short, like, it has all the impact of a fly landing on your nose. When it's there, you notice it, but once it's gone, you'll forget it ever happened. When the fight ends, it literally just leaves you with a feeling of, wait, what? Okay, that happened. About the most I can say beyond that is that this episode reminds me of how much they like to abuse ninja training as an argument back in the day. Scorpion dodges a raging demon with teleporting and ninja skills. Chun-Li's skill up close is no match for Mai's ninja training. Sector could outmaneuver Fulgur with his ninja abilities. Sub-Zero's impressive reflexes and ninja-like skills... ninja-like skills? What the fuck do you mean ninja-like? It's just Sub-Zero! Anyway, yeah, 5 out of 10 I guess. Left no impact. Shame, because I fucking love Chun-Li. And I'm sure Mai's cool too. Oh, but actually, no, hold on. The death sucked. So I have to give it a bit of a negative score. I'm not completely neutral on it. 4 out of 10. Fuck. Boring episode. Don't like it.
Go Ken!
Hi, I'm Ken. From one Fatal Fury character murdering one of my favorite Street Fighters to another Fatal Fury character murdering one of my favorite Street Fighters, though at least in this case, I think Terry's cool as hell. So the analysis was fine, pretty standard, talk about their stories, bring up a few feats, make an unfunny finger-painting joke that is the only reason I'm worried if they did Akuma vs. Rao that they'd fuck it up, reference Captain Planet, the Goose thing, which did make me laugh when I first saw it, and yeah, about right. But what's up with this part when they're talking about the Shin Ryuken? I know this episode was taken down and re-uploaded for copyright, but this originally was just gameplay footage, right? Why was that removed, and why was it replaced with this? Meanwhile, the fight is pretty good. The choreography is fast-paced and fluent, there's plenty of nice moments where they're just throwing attacks, including their special moves. I like bits like Terry getting punched in the balls and that just ticking him off. I like Terry fucking rising tackling across the floor in a breakdance motion to avoid Ken's attack. That's just a really creative use of the fucking move, that's great. I really like the Shin Ryuken, it has a lot of impact and it's quite a meaty hit. I also like that they included other characters in the back. It makes the fight feel more like it takes place within one of their two worlds, instead of just taking place in some pocket dimension designed purely for these two to fight. It's something that, to my knowledge, last happened in fucking Canary vs. Sindel with Shao Kahn, or if you want to count it, Batman's voice in Winter Soldier vs. Red Hood. It's great. They make it feel like there's more going on in this world than just this fight, and I like it. It makes me feel happy. It makes my brain do a smile. Part of me almost wishes there was a Fatal Fury character here, but I actually think the characters they chose, even if all Street Fighter, were really good. Because the fight starts with Ken versus Dan, and the characters they put in the back are Sakura and Blanca, who are there to support Dan, who's their friend, and Sean, who's there because he's Ken's student. That is a detail only Street Fighter fans would notice. Like me, I noticed, and I liked it a lot. Anyway, back to the fight itself. While I don't remember much, rewatching it, I actually quite enjoyed it. The fight shows off Ken's cocky personality well as the two's shared conviction and drive to win and refusal to back down. One thing I really like is that both characters get a moment where they just stop to breathe, where you can see that the fight up until the death wasn't just a bunch of random set pieces that didn't have any impact on them, but have actually managed to tire the two out. And I personally really liked the Hadouken then Power Wave battle. It was one of the earlier examples of changing to a more detailed art style to emphasize a moment in a sprite battle, something which happens a lot nowadays, for better or for worse. And I think it's really nice. The actual impact of the two attacks clashing is great as well. My problem is what happens after. The pause between the waves skidding under Ken and the Geyser hitting him is just a little too long. And while I like the fact that both characters got to take a moment to breathe, I really wish Terry's happened around the same time as Ken. Like when he was getting up in response to being Shinryukened, he started to breathe heavily, as opposed to that happening after he just power waved. Because the way it's presented makes it feel less like he's tired from the beating that Ken laid down, and more like he's tired from his own attack draining his energy. I also feel like it would have been a lot cooler if Ken, in his battered and bruised state with all the fucking stupid cuts, continued to try putting up a fight instead of Terry just power dunking him. The death is really sudden and abrupt in some ways, but also too long-winded in others. Personally, I would have had Terry also clearly exhausted before their final clash. Terry would be huffing and puffing just like Ken was before they had the Hadouken versus Power Wave battle. Then I would have had a bit less pause between the end of that clash and when Ken gets hit by the Geyser, and I also would have had Ken's Hadouken hit Terry as well. That way both of them are bloodied and bruised, leading to a final battle where Terry wins. That way both of them are very heavily bruised and injured, and the way that they fight represents the whole legendary Hungry Wolf thing. The two are now fighting on their last legs like a group of starving wolves in a ferocious battle. It also makes Terry come off less like a massive asshole. In the actual fight, Ken's barely standing and Terry just decides to kill him, which is very un-Terry-like. However, I could believe it a bit more if the two just got so into the fight and they just got so ferocious in their battle that Terry inadvertently ended up killing Ken. Especially because it would be a case where Ken died because of his own hubris. Ken's refusal to back down and lose led to his death, and I think that would be a nice little way to end the fight. Still, despite that, I think this is a really good episode. It's not outstanding in quality, I'd give it probably a 7 out of 10. It doesn't have many moments that super stuck with me, and the analysis wasn't anything special, and I'm a bit miffed at the ending. But overall, I think it's a really solid episode that's a lot of fun, and while I do wish Ken got an even better episode, seeing as I put him in my top 4 favorite Street Fighter characters, I am content with this episode overall. Good episode, guys. Season 3 had those, you know.
Optimus Prime's Ryu's comfort character. That means he is also all of our comfort characters secretly.
Holy shit, every episode up until Geese vs Heihachi was a Street Fighter one. Anyway, so before going into this, I know there's a lot of controversy over the winner of this episode. It's not Ben 10 vs Green Lantern tier, obviously, but there are a lot of people who believe the episode is wrong, and honestly, my opinion on who should have won and whether or not the episode is right are irrelevant to my discussion of its quality. A winner does not determine how I feel about an episode. So, out of the episodes we've looked at so far, there is no competition, this one has the best analysis. I mean, Boomstick says Shrek.
Shrek, 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 Shrek.
And the words terrible father I said without a Boomstick dad joke being involved. How novel. In fact, all the jokes involving Boomstick's family involve future children he might have, and his mother. But honestly, I just found that Ryu's analysis was a lot of fun to watch, and I actually found myself laughing at some of the jokes in Jin's analysis. I like when Wiz just outright calls Jin a fucking idiot. I like their reactions to stupid shit happening. I just like Ben's delivery whenever Wiz is just fucking done with Boomstick. I just like that little moment where Boomstick says something that's oddly specific and Wiz just says, "What have you done?" I just like that. I find that funny. That is what amuses me. It's a good analysis. It's what I want more of. Fun dialogue, allusions to things we haven't seen, and no slapstick. Awesome, a solid analysis of two characters that I actually like, with good jokes and actual fucking numbers. As for the fight, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's fucking great. The choreography on display here is almost breathtaking. The start of the fight doesn't bother with set pieces, it has no special moves and pretty much no banter, and it's great. It's a pure martial arts film animated in 3D, and I've said it before, but I've got Chinese heritage. I grew up watching martial arts films, so this is almost nostalgic for me, which I rarely feel outside of Godzilla vs. Gamera. The animation has a great sense of escalation as well. It starts, as I said, with just martial arts, ending with Jin coming out on top. However, Ryu gets back up and they start throwing out their special moves, and Ryu uses his V trigger, V reversal, and V skill in succession, allowing him to gain the upper hand, though the Shoryuken shout is kind of weak. Then Jin goes Devil Jin, and his foot guards disappear. Why did I notice that? And now he's gained the upper hand and bursts out a move resembling the ending of his Critical Edge from Soul Calibur 5, meaning we've gone from V abilities to straight up super moves in the super form. And yes, they go to the vault from Ruby. Thank you. I know if I didn't bring it up, a bunch of people would ask me, oh, you didn't bring up, did you notice it was in Ruby? You didn't bring that up. And yes, I noticed. Thank you. Ryu vs. Jin also does have better choreography and effects than Raven vs. Cinder. It is better than that volume of Ruby. After Devil Jin takes advantage, Ryu comes back with Evil Ryu, and we go from regular martial arts choreography to a wild animalistic clash. The two are blowing up rocks left and right, they're throwing out ranged attacks, demonstrating a far more unhinged method of battle between them, and ending with a fantastic collision where Devil Jin still comes out as the winner. What follows should have been an epic moment, where Ryu realizes he's been playing into Devil Jin's favor by trying to take him down with sheer brute force, leading to him suppressing the Satsui no Hado to achieve Muno Ken, and giving us an epic final confrontation where Ryu uses his newfound control and power to systematically beat down Devil Jin. He powers through Devil Jin's eye laser, he destroys one of Devil Jin's wings so he can't fly as a demonstration of his heightened control and ability to think, outsmarting Devil Jin and rendering him unable to avoid him, ending with an incredible finisher. And instead, Devil Jin eyeball vomits on Evil Ryu, who suddenly goes Ultra Instinct, resulting in Jin letting him go off screen and simply giving the opportunity to shove his tits and shoot him in the face with an extremely abrupt and disappointing climax that lacks any impact. Shame. Everything leading up to this moment is incredible. The animation quality, the effects, the choreography, the escalation, the cinematography, the set piece of them fighting on a rock as it falls, which puts the equivalent Ruby scene to shame. Not to just dunk on that Ruby fight, I wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't expected of me, and it is the best fight of Volume 5. It was also one of the only fights of Volume 5. However, the cinematography and choreography of that fight is just so much less. Instead of this tight, sexy choreography, it's just blind swinging. I get that for Cinder, but not for Raven. There's one brief, really nice moment before it's back to just randomly swinging things with reckless abandon. The two have a heavy sword clash similar to Ryu vs. Jin's fist clash, but while Ryu and Jin pose as if they just thrown a full-on punch, they put all of their weight into that attack, and there's a shitload of impact. This one just has the two look like they've barely put anything in at all, and thus it feels kinda limp. Half Beerus, half Galaxia, if you know what I mean. I also should mention that while I like how Evil Ryu blasts up straight through a rock with a single mighty jump, and it's a really cool entrance and really great way for Evil Ryu to get up there, Cinder just slowly flies up in a weird pose. Though all the stuff on the falling rocks is really good, though when they land it's dumb, because not only is Vernal's body no longer there, but it's super abrupt, and unlike Ryu vs. Jin where we get to see them landing from the fall, we don't see Cinder and Raven land, they're just suddenly on the floor. Like what, did they forget to animate them landing? Anyway, so that was my brief Ruby mention. I think Cinder vs. Raven is a very good fight, and it's amazing to me how this fight, animated for a series that Rooster Teeth gives a pretty chunky budget to, and is also their own original project, got so outclassed by just Torian being Torian. But it was also animated by Christina Christopherson and David Fisher. Great job, all of you. You did a fantastic job. God damn, Ryu vs. Jin is just so good. I'll give it an 8. Yeah. Keep in mind, that's the same score I gave Goro vs. Machamp. This is not a low score in my eyes. And this one is a great episode. I was intending to give it a 9 going in, but there were 2 issues that came up. First is the death. The death doesn't do it for me. As I said, it's too abrupt and weird. Ryu just suddenly changes, pushes Jin like a toddler in a playground, and then out of nowhere does a Kamehameha and Jin just dies. The actual push and Shinku Hadoken, while personally not what I would have done, I illustrated what I would have done earlier, showing Ryu's better control as opposed to him just flailing on Jin with 2 attacks, This is not necessarily bad in and of itself. The blast and the shot of it from a distance would have been really cool, but then it just ends. The blast just fades, peters out, it's just gone. And Jin flops to the ground like he got punched in the face as opposed to having been blasted by a massive laser. There should have been another shot after, a close-up shot of Jin getting fucking obliterated by the blast. But nope. Then we see Ryu's model clipping, and there's this really weird looking streak of blood, and according to Boomstick, there's supposed to be a huge hole in Jin's chest, which, you know, if you pause the video and you look really closely, you can almost see, but it's something that I don't think most people would even have realized if it wasn't said. We don't get a good look at it, and it's over so quickly. It's so abrupt, and that's a real shame, because what comes after the fight is also great. The conclusion is really well put together. Ignoring accuracy, of course, once again, the accuracy of the fight doesn't matter to me much. The conclusion is just really well done. It discusses all of the relevant scaling and feats to their conclusion, it gives number values and measurements that are actually comparable, and it also justifies the scaling to Akuma, which was necessary. No fucking Jin can do this many megatons of TNT, but Akuma, oh, he could lift this much and that's more impressive somehow. None of that bullshit. Bam! Comparable levels of energy that you can actually look at and see a meaningful difference for. The only issue is that it didn't actually bring up their speed values, which I think would have been good and would have been the last little bit necessary to really push this conclusion over into the really, really good territory. Despite that, I still think this is really great. However, what was the other issue I had? Well, I hate to say it, because this is by far one of the most subjective things I could talk about. It's the music. Now, putting aside my personal feelings towards the style of music, as I'm very much not a rap guy, I think that Fight Like a Devil is just not a fitting song. And there's one issue, one simple problem I have. It's too low energy. The track never really picks up to me. It keeps an incredibly low and dull energy throughout the battle, and I think if the track was just a little more fitting for the fight, I would have probably given the episode a 9 out of 10. And that's one of the hardest things to explain. It's like trying to explain the control in a video game. It's something that either you get it or you don't. I can't really convince people. The best I can say is that Fight Like a Devil is a super slow song, while the animation is super fast paced. Still though, 8 out of 10 episode. It is great. Ryu vs Jin is incredible, and easily demolishes the previous two in quality overall. Now, how does Heihachi vs Geese compare? Heihachi vs Geese is by far my favourite sprite fight of the season, and it's not even close. I think if I had to describe this fight in one word, the word would be fun. While the start was rather slow, it gets really into it with a speed and pacing I wanted from Sablewolf vs John or Lee vs Sanji. Sanji? Mostly from Heihachi, of course, who throws his attacks out really fast, while Geese's are slower and more meaty to show off their different fighting styles. But before we go any further with that, let's discuss the analysis. It's very Ryu vs Jin. One character has just an overall solid analysis, one character has an analysis with good jokes and also bad jokes. Jin has the "where you at" shit, and Heihachi has that entire Elon Musk joke, which, well, it starts with a boomstick dad joke, which is not a good way for it to start, and then it continues with this overly long Elon Musk is Heihachi gag that runs for 37 seconds. That is a joke that's over half a minute long, and none of it is funny. For that much setup, I would have expected an actual punchline at the end, but nope, the whole joke from beginning to end is Elon Musk is Heihachi, and there's never anything more to the joke than that. It's one of the most unfunny things Death Battle has ever put into an episode. Then Heihachi has a second dad joke in his analysis as well, so thanks. Heihachi's was a bust. But Geese's is really good. It's got some actual jokes I liked, it's in depth, it's not paced as weirdly, I just think it's overall solid. Which analysis is better between the episodes? I'm not sure right now, I'd say they're within similar ranges of good. Though they did bring up Heihachi stabbing people with his hair and he doesn't do that in the fight, 0 out of 10, I'm joking. The fight is way better than I expected. You know what, I'm actually so happy with how this came out, I'm going to talk about all my negatives first. That's right, let's get the negatives out of the way. So first off, the voices, not feeling them. Heihachi's voice, I think his delivery is good, and I like that he's speaking in Japanese, because to my knowledge, even in games with English dubs, he's almost always in Japanese regardless. And I think it bounces well off of Geese's English. However, it's just not right. I think it's a little too high-pitched, needs a bit more gruff and grunt to really feel right for me. And Geese, while I think he's better, has some pretty bad moments too. I like the English they went for, same to how I like the Japanese for Heihachi, and the hamminess was really good at times. And he has some good shouts, like Rebuken! That was really good. But there are some times where it's just a little hard to understand. I think most notably his line at the end, where he's like, while falling down the volcano like a oh god, Geese sounds like Rocky Balboa. Oh no. But that one took me a few rewatches to figure out what the fuck he was saying. He's a little bit too hard to understand, because, I mean, even in his own games, he's not this hard to understand. I also think some of the faces look pretty bad, but pretty much exclusively early on. The animation for Geese slamming Heihachi into a rock looks a bit too janky and a bit too slow. The shot of Heihachi digging into the ground looks dumb because you can see his foot through the damage on the floor, and he just throws Geese as a single solid sprite that doesn't change. It looks really funny. And personally, for the ending, I would have preferred if instead of Geese just zapping Heihachi and Heihachi deciding to fall, I would have rather, Geese had actually destroyed the side of the volcano so it looked a bit more natural for Heihachi to fall. That's it. Those are my major issues and the moments I was taken out of the fight by. Other than that, I just think it's fun. One thing I noticed that I really appreciated is that they didn't throw in any pointless hand-drawn segments for the sake of having them. They had one really good hand-drawn moment where Geese turns into Sans the Skeleton, and that's it. The other moments were all just sprite edits, things that aren't like these very obviously different style hand-drawn. Even Geese falling into the volcano is in the same general style as the rest of the animations. They didn't need to cram those in, and they were able to keep up the pace and keep it going back and forth like an actual fighting game. There are other small touches I really appreciate. They recreated Geese's intro, which I thought was really cool. The ending is pretty much exactly what I wanted from Ken vs Terry, though obviously more specific to Heihachi vs Geese because they're different characters. When the two are tired out, it's mutual, it's at the same time. Heihachi doesn't get tired and then Geese just is fine and gets tired after throwing another attack. No, they both get tired around the same time, really tuck it out. It emphasized not only that these two are more human than the Chaos Hedgehogs, Life Fiber Nudists, and Ketamine addicts we've been having as of late, and also that the fight's just not been a cakewalk for either. The two have really taken a beating all fight. The ending is a great little bit that shows off the two's conviction to win. Geese tries to launch Heihachi in with him and get himself out of the volcano, and instead of focusing on survival, Heihachi decides to instead take his time to make sure Geese dies. It's great. I also appreciate the different fighting styles they've shown. See, from what I'm aware, in Tekken, Heihachi is an extremely aggressive character. He's all about getting in close and putting you down soon. Geese, however, is a lot more focused on his ranged options, his grabs, and his counters. I could be wrong, but that is what I've seen from gameplay. And this fight manages to demonstrate that. Geese does well when he allows Heihachi to attack him, countering and parrying Heihachi's moves, and is able to keep Heihachi at a distance with his attacks until he wants to get up close. Heihachi, well, there's only one way you can animate Heihachi. He's pretty much all physique. And it was done well. They even have Geese actively go on the offensive later, and Heihachi does noticeably better against that. Heihachi even throws Geese's own Rashomon dick punch right back at him. It's great. And while it is a bit weird that Geese doesn't get to do too many combos, the fact of the matter is Heihachi gets a lot of smaller, lighter attacks in, and Geese gets a lot of slower, really brutal hits in over the fight. And you know what? The battle's got some pretty good jokes, and by jokes I mean that one joke I thought was funny, you should know the one. And it was pretty great because this joke leads into the payoff of Heihachi getting his own counter off. It's just good. But of course, the most impactful hit of the fight is the Raging Storm Energy Geyser. The impact, the shout from Brent Mukai, and that shot of it causing the volcano to start erupting all over, it's great. But even that doesn't hold a candle to this episode's one completely standout shot. Lex vs Doom had the death, Ryuko vs Shadow had the alumni mode Scissor Blade reveal, and Yoda vs Mickey is Yoda vs Mickey. This episode has this absolutely stellar rotating shot of the two fighting on top of the little platform they have. It's so brief, but this single shot of the two fighting it out with the smooth as hell sprite work and the cinematography is incredible. And the death is great too. Favorite death of the season so far, even if I think maybe Geese looks a bit too much like a Beavis and Butthead character. And the conclusion was good too. I can't wait to see how people respond to Ryu vs Jin now. And I don't bring it up often because usually I don't notice it, but the music of this death battle, See, the last two episodes I never really noticed the music in the entire fight, but this one I did. I really like Kings of Iron for one simple reason. That techno beat they got going on is quintessential old school fighting game music. I got into this fight a lot more because this track took me back to that era of classic 2D sprite based fighting games, and that general style of music, and I loved it to bits. And yeah, that was Heihachi vs Geese. I have no idea how the fuck it managed to be, but it's my second favorite episode of the season so far. After the lack of anything I cared about in Doom vs Lex and the heavily flawed Shadow vs Ryuko, this was exactly what I needed. At the same time though, while I don't want to necessarily end on a bummer, I feel like this could have been better in 3D. With their literally perfect matching models and the fact that 3D just fits Heihachi more and Geese was mostly shown 3D in his analysis, am I the only one who feels like Geese's analysis was maybe just a little too short? I don't know. Thinking about it, Geese's analysis feels a bit short. Anyway, I feel like that if it was 3D and they did it as well as Ryu vs Jin, it could have jumped up from a super strong 7 out of 10 to an 8 or 9. It's still a good episode. I might give it a 7.5 out of 10 just to separate it from Ken vs Terry a little bit. But, you know, it was good. And that was every Tekken and Fatal Fury episode on Death Battle discussed. And you know what? I'm pretty happy this video was generally positive. Chun-Li vs Mai Shiranui hasn't aged well and isn't a particularly good episode, but Ken vs Terry was a pleasant rewatch, Heihachi vs Geese was a pleasant surprise, and Ryu vs Jin is great. Yeah, I say I definitely still prefer Ryu vs Jin over Heihachi vs Geese, and the reasons are pretty simple. The choreography and escalation is so fucking well done, and it's just an overall fantastic episode. Though Heihachi vs Geese definitely has superiority in music and the death, but still, damn, Tekken has a good record of episodes, and Fatal Fury has most of a good record. Now, people, stop saying Geese, Terry, and Mai are King of Fighters characters. The former two debuted in Fatal Fury, and Mai debuted in Fatal Fury 2. We haven't actually had a King of Fighters character like Kyo or Rugal in Death Battle yet. And just because they're in King of Fighters doesn't make them King of Fighters characters any more than it makes Ralph Jones from Ikari Warriors a King of Fighters character, or makes Joker from Persona a Smash Bros character. Alright, have a good one guys, see ya.